what if the green pond scum you walk past every single day is actually like a high-tech, real-time alarm system for the collapse of our planet?
I mean, it's a wild thought, right?
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're taking you on an audio journey through this deep, fascinating visual presentation.
Yeah, it's an incredibly detailed slide deck.
Right. It's titled The Hidden World, Algal Biodiversity and Ecosystem Health.
Yeah.
And we literally have this massive, visually stunning report sitting right in front of us.
Beautiful imagery in this one.
Oh, totally. Like, slide one alone is this striking split screen showing the underwater world of aquatic ecosystems, highlighting North Macedonia's incredible national parks and ancient lakes.
And we should probably mention off the top, just for context, the backing behind this research.
Yeah, good call. So the introductory slides, right around slide 2 and 3, show the logos for the project's backers. We've got Scientia Nova, and this is part of the Erasmus Plus Greening the Game initiative.
Which is all about sustainable solutions for sports and transportation.
Right, exactly. Plus there's the European Union co-funding disclaimer in there too. So, heavy hitters backing this data.
Absolutely.
But, we aren't just going to read you data points off a screen. Our mission today is to translate this visual evidence into, well, the underlying mechanics of how our world actually works.
Because looking through a microscope at a tiny speck of algae can literally tell us exactly how healthy or, how sick an entire massive ecosystem is.
Which is just crazy to me. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because what looks like, pond scum to the naked eye is actually screaming at us if we only know how to listen.
It really is a completely different way to look at nature because, we usually judge a body of water by its surface. Like, is it pretty?
Yeah.
Is it clear? Can I swim in it? But the real story, the actual diagnostic truth of that water is entirely microscopic.
Yeah, these organisms don't just happen to live in the water.
Exactly. They are actively communicating its chemical reality to us.
Which perfectly brings us to slide 5, which is basically the main cast of characters in this report.
Meet the main algal groups, yeah.
Yeah, so there are 3 distinct cards on this slide, each with its own specific icon, and it creates this sort of biological spectrum, which they show on slide 6.
That's the color gradient infographic flowing from clean water to toxic risk.
Right, so on the clean end of the spectrum, we have diatoms, and they use this little microscope icon for them. The report notes these are single-celled algae with, intricate silica shells.
They're primary producers
Yeah.
and key indicators of clean, oxygen-rich water.
Right. Then in the middle, marked with a little green leaf icon, we have green algae, Cladophora glomerata, I think.
Yeah, you got it. Cladophora.
Awesome. And those pop up in transitioning ecosystems, basically where nutrients are starting to build up and they kind of dominate riverbeds.
Which leads to the far end of the spectrum.
Yeah, the stark blue warning triangle icon, blue-green algae.
Which is actually, it's a bit of a misnomer, really. Because blue-green algae aren't technically algae at all.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they are cyanobacteria. And they're the ones responsible for those massive toxic blooms you might hear about in the news.
Oh, the ones that choke out an entire lake.
Exactly. They thrive in highly nutrient-rich, or what we call hypereutrophic, waters, and they directly threaten the health of the entire ecosystem.
Okay, so we have this spectrum, diatoms to green algae to cyanobacteria. And as I was looking at slide 6, the way these 3 groups map to water quality, it honestly reminded me of a car's dashboard.
A dashboard. Okay, I can see where you're going with this.
Think about it. The diatoms are that calm green indicator light that tells you, all the systems are running perfectly smoothly, you're good to cruise.
Right, everything's functioning.
Yeah. And then the green algae showing up. That's the yellow check engine light. Something under the hood is changing. Nutrients are building up. You probably need to get it looked at.
And the cyanobacteria.
That is the flashing red. Engine is overheating. Pull over immediately. Warning light.
I love that. That's a really highly functional way to look at it. Because what's fascinating here is what makes a bioindicator reliable in the first place.
Which is what?
It's how strictly it adheres to its biological rules. So take your green light, the diatoms. You mentioned they have silica shells.
Yeah.
They literally extract dissolved silicic acid from the water to build these microscopic glass houses around themselves.
Wow, microscopic glass houses.
Yeah, and to do that and to photosynthesize efficiently, they require crystal clear water so sunlight can penetrate deeply. And they need highly oxygenated environments.
So if the water gets murky at all...
Or if the oxygen drops even a bit, they can't survive, they die off. So their mere presence is an absolute guarantee of high water quality.
Got it. And the red light, the cyanobacteria, I'm assuming they operate on the exact opposite rules.
Precisely. Cyanobacteria are incredibly ancient, resilient organisms, but they absolutely gorge on excess nutrients,
Like what kind of nutrient?
specifically nitrogen and phosphorus. Normally, those elements are pretty rare in a pristine lake, but when human activity introduces things like agricultural runoff or wastewater into the ecosystem, you get a massive spike.
And the cyanobacteria just feast on it.
Exactly. They multiply rapidly, creating those toxic blooms.
Mm.
So they don't just reflect the environment. Their biology is a precise, real-time diagnostic lens.
You're warning us before things go totally sideways.
Right. They warn us of a systemic overload long before the macroscopic life, the fish and the frogs, start turning up dead.
Okay, so if we want to see what a perfectly functioning green light engine looks like, where do we actually go?
Well, the presentation takes us to the mountains.
Yeah, slides 7 through 9. The researchers focused their baseline data on the untouched alpine biotopes of North Macedonia's national parks, specifically Mavrovo and Pelister.
Right. These are high-altitude, deeply isolated aquatic environments. They're essentially like islands in the sky.
Islands in the sky, I like that.
Because they're so isolated from human runoff and development, they act as the ultimate biological baselines, the cleanest of the clean.
And the slides here are really clean, very text-focused, highlighting the raw data with these little rare finds call-out boxes. Like in Mavrovo, the researchers document 79 distinct species of algae.
Which is a very healthy number.
Yeah, and they explicitly note this recent survey in the Tony Voda biotope where they found this rare yellow-green alga called Trebonema intermixtum and Nutella capillaris.
Right, which marks their absolute first recorded appearance in Macedonia.
Exactly. And then in National Park Pelister, slide 8 literally calls it the diadem hotspot, logging a staggering 321 different taxa.
It's an incredible level of diversity.
It is, but okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. I'm trying to look at this from the perspective of someone who isn't a marine biologist.
Sure.
I see these numbers, and honestly, it sounds a bit like collecting biological trading cards. Like, why should you, our listener, care that some scientists counted 300 microscopic specks in a remote mountain lake?
It's the essential question, isn't it? Like, why does a microscopic tally actually matter to us in the real world?
Right.
The answer comes down to a concept called endemism. If we look at slide 9, it points out a vital detail. Out of those 321 diatoms found in Pelister, 16 of them possess completely unique morphological characteristics.
Meaning the architecture of their glass shells is different.
Yeah. Unlike anything documented anywhere else, this suggests they might be entirely new to science.
Wow.
Endemic means a species exists in one specific geographic location and absolutely nowhere else on Earth.
Nowhere else at all.
Right. Because these alpine lakes have been isolated and undisturbed for so long, evolutionary pathways have played out here that happened nowhere else.
So they're like a vault.
Yes. These environments are acting as a living vault for irreplaceable biological heritage. Protecting these biotopes isn't just about having clean water for the sake of clean water.
It's about protecting the unknown.
Exactly. If that pristine water quality drops even a fraction, those unique organisms could be wiped from existence before we even get the chance to understand them, name them, or study their ecological role.
That makes the stakes feel incredibly high.
We aren't just counting specks. We've been trying to map the unknown before it completely vanishes.
Man. Well, that provides a pretty stark transition into the next major phase of this presentation. Following the flow from slide 10, we move from these isolated high-altitude vaults down into the Great Basins.
Right, down to the macro scale.
Yeah, the massive bodies of water that North Macedonia is famous for. The researchers applied this exact same diagnostic spectrum to the 3 lakes.
And this is where the macro and the micro just beautifully and kind of tragically intersect.
Yeah, slide 11 is this really beautiful, overarching infographic mapping the ecosystem. It takes you on this visual journey from the mountains down to 3 distinct lake cross-sections.
It's a great visual.
And then it walks us through the profile slides for each lake, which is slides 12 through 15. They contrast the macro characteristics, like lake depth and color, with the microbiological data, which is the dominant algae.
So let's look at the first one, Lake Ohrid.
The ancient pristine. The report paints a picture of an ancient, deep, incredibly clear blue lake. It labels the environment as oligotrophic, which we probably need to decode that term.
Yeah, let's break that down. So oligo comes from Greek meaning few or scant, And brontrophic relates to feeding or nutrition.
Okay.
So an oligotrophic lake is a body of water with very low nutrient levels.
Which sounds bad, but
Counterintuitively, in aquatic ecosystems, low nutrients is actually a fantastic thing. It means the water isn't choked with excess nitrogen or phosphorus.
right.
The water remains incredibly clear, light penetrates deeply, and the oxygen levels stay high all the way down to the bottom.
And because of that clear, oxygen-rich water, the dominant biological group here is our green light indicator, right? The diatoms.
Exactly, the silica algae.
The report specifically notes that endemism in Lake Ohrid is wildly high. It calls out a unique group of diatoms named the Oridana species.
Yeah, Lake Ohrid is actually one of the oldest lakes in Europe. Because it has remained deep, cold, and oligotrophic for millions of years, it's provided this perfectly stable canvas.
A canvas for the Oridana to evolve.
Exactly, it's a masterpiece of specialized life.
But then we travel to the second basin, Lake Prespa, and the data here shifts dramatically.
It really does.
The lake is shallower, the water levels are actively fluctuating, and the overall temperature is warming. The slide calls it the fluctuating middle, classifying it as mesoeutrophic.
Right, with meso meaning middle. It's an ecosystem in transition. The nutrient levels are rising, either from internal warming dynamics or external mixed nutrients.
And microscopic life reflects that perfectly. The dominant group is a mix of diatoms and green algae.
Right, the beautiful glass-like diatoms aren't dominating alone anymore. They're actively competing in this chaotic mix with leafy green algae.
And the endemism, that vault of unique life, has dropped from very high to just moderate. It really feels like the yellow check engine light is flashing in Prespa.
Yeah, the environment is under active stress. The biological real estate is changing, and the ancient specialists are losing ground.
Which brings us to the third basin, Lake Dodron. Slide 15 labels this one the productive extreme.
And extreme is the right word.
It's shallow, incredibly warm, and overgrown. The water is thick and opaque. It's classified as hypereutrophic.
And when you look at the microbiology here, the diatoms are completely gone.
Completely gone. The ecosystem is entirely dominated by cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae, the red flashing warning light.
Yep.
And the most striking data point, endemism in Dodron is practically non-existent. It's dominated by cosmopolitan species. The unique life is just gone.
Right.
So we see these three lakes side by side on the slides, looking almost like three different planets. But this isn't just a geographical tour, is it? Can you connect the dots for us here?
Oh, absolutely. This is really the most critical insight of the entire presentation. When we look at Ohrid, Prespa, and Dodron side by side, we are looking at a time machine.
Wait, a time machine, like a timeline of degradation.
Exactly. These three lakes perfectly visualize the exact timeline of ecosystem collapse.
Yeah.
Ohrid represents the ancient past, the pristine baseline state.
Okay.
Prespa is the transitional present, an ecosystem currently under immense stress. And Dodron is the terrifying potential future,
Wow.
a hypereutrophic endpoint, where the original unique biological identity of the lake has been entirely erased.
That concept that one lake is basically the dark future of another, that brings us to the climax of the slide deck, slides 16 and 17.
The mechanics of it all.
Yeah, how exactly does a crystal clear vault of rare life like Ohrid turn into a toxic, thick green soup like Dodron? The presentation points to a process called eutrophication.
Right. Eutrophication is the engine of this destruction. It's a process by which a water body becomes overly enriched with nutrients, fundamentally altering its biological makeup.
And we can see this on slide 16, the trophic scale diagram. It shows these arrows leading from the deep, clear Ohrid straight down to the shallow green Dodron.
Right.
But the true cost is on slide 17. It's this line graph titled The Cost of Eutrophication, and there's a huge X shape on the graph.
Yes, the intersecting shift.
Right. As we move from oligotrophic to hypereutrophic, the line for cyanobacteria dominance, that generic cosmopolitan life, shoots aggressively upward.
While the other line crashes.
Exactly. Endemism and specialization. The rare species, like the Oridana, drastically decreases, crashing down to zero.
It's a complete swap.
You know, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Looking at how this shifts, it's exactly like the gentrification and commercialization of a unique neighborhood.
Gentrification. Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that analogy.
Think about it. Imagine Lake Ohrid as this deeply unique historic neighborhood. It's been undisturbed for decades, so it has all these bespoke, one-of-a-kind boutique shops.
Ah, and those are Oridana diatoms.
Yes. You literally cannot find these shops anywhere else in the world. They are perfectly adapted to that specific, clean, quiet street.
Okay, I follow.
But then eutrophication acts like a wave of aggressive commercial developers moving in. They flood the neighborhood with excess nutrients. Let's call it cheap capital.
And the fundamental conditions of the neighborhood alter completely.
Exactly. The rent skyrockets, the environment gets noisier, the conditions change so drastically that those bespoke boutiques, the rare diatoms, can no longer survive. They get forced out.
They go extinct.
Right. And what replaces them? The cyanobacteria. The massive generic big box chain stores that can thrive absolutely anywhere on Earth.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They swoop in, feed on all that cheap capital, and completely take over the block. By the time you get to Lake Boisrond, the neighborhood is highly productive, right?
Lots of biomass.
Tons of business. But its unique historic identity is dead. It's been replaced by a generic strip mall ecosystem you could find in any polluted ditch anywhere.
That is a phenomenal way to understand the data, honestly, because it perfectly captures the underlying tragedy of eutrophication.
Yeah.
The true cost, as the slide explicitly states, is the homogenization of life. In biology, we have a term for those big box chain stores, cosmopolitan species.
Cosmopolitan, right.
These are species that are highly adaptable and exist globally. When a lake becomes hypereutrophic, it doesn't just become a barren wasteland. As you said, it becomes highly productive, but it produces generic life.
Right, it's just green everywhere.
Degrading water quality doesn't just mean the water looks a bit murky. It means you are actively replacing ancient, unique ecosystems with generic, globally common ones.
You're losing the identity of the ecosystem itself.
Absolutely. Clean water is intrinsically linked to the very survival of rare life forms. It's a strict biological requirement, not just an aesthetic preference for humans who want to go swimming. If we lose the clean water, we permanently lose the genetic heritage it holds.
Which brings us right to the end of the presentation, the visual conclusion. Slide 18 is the final content slide, and slide 19 is this great summary mind map.
It really pulls it all together.
It does. It reiterates the ultimate thesis. Understanding these microscopic indicators is the absolute first step in ensuring their macroscopic survival.
Because we can't protect what we refuse to see.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, what's your final synthesis on all this?
For me, it demands a complete shift in perspective. We're so conditioned to look at a river or a lake and just see a flat, reflective surface.
Right. We judge it by really crude metrics like, does it smell bad?
Or is there plastic floating in it? But this research forces us to look deeper. The next time you look at a body of water, you won't just see a reflective surface. You'll know you're looking at a complex, intensely competitive, hidden world.
And it's not silent.
Not at all. It's constantly sending us real-time, highly specific messages about the trajectory of our planet's health. The alarm bells are ringing. We just need to bother looking through the lens to see them.
A perfectly stated takeaway, which leaves me with a final provocative thought for you, our listener. We've spent this entire deep dive touring the ancient, pristine lakes and untouched alpine waters of North Macedonia.
Beautiful places.
But I want you to apply this lens to the water right outside your own door. Think about the lakes, the rivers, or even just the municipal ponds in your own city.
What's living in them right now?
Exactly. What invisible sentinels are currently sounding the alarm in your local ecosystem? And what irreplaceable biological heritage right in your own backyard might be quietly homogenizing into a generic, big box, green water wasteland before anyone even notices?
It's definitely something to chew on the next time you take a walk by the water.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this depth dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the hidden world with us. Stay curious, keep looking closer, and we'll catch you on the next one.